Hey, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be taking my little old Sony a7S III and building it into a, dare I say, cinema rig. Yes, I did dare. So I'll just be walking you through the parts that I chose to build out this rig, the vast majority of which I did pay for. There's a few things that were provided to me by companies at various points in the past few months, but this video is not sponsored by anybody. There's really no point to this, just something for fun if you're interested. So to start with, the base of your cinema rig or your big beefy rig, whatever you want to call it, is the cage. And I went with this little Tilta half cage for the a7S III. And I really like half cages because I like to have the camera grip exposed. I've had some full cages in the past that kind of make the grip a little bit less comfortable, make it bulkier. This cage is really small and there's not a ton of mounting points on it. So if you do want something bigger, more robust, totally understandable. The next thing I'm going to do is grab this little Nato rail. This is a Tilta Nato rail. Nothing special about it. Pretty standard. You can buy these from lots of different companies, Small Rig, Tilta. I went with this one just because it matches the cage pretty well and it doesn't have any branding on it. This is going to allow us to mount the top handle that I chose. I chose this one because it has a record button on here. So you can trigger record right from the top handle, which I thought was pretty cool. And they have various versions of these that have different mounting options. So I got the Nato rail one. I like the Nato rail version because it's easy to take on and off the camera. So there you go, top handle installed, pretty simple. This does have a USB cable. So there's a USB-C output here, and then it goes to USB, I guess the micro or mini, whatever, the bottom one here on the a7S III. So you need that cable in order to actually trigger the record, which we do next. The next thing we're gonna grab is this little swivel mount. This is a monitor mount from Small Rig. I got the one that has the area locating pin connections, but again, there's a couple different versions of these depending on how you wanna mount it. The top handle has an area locating connection right on the front of it. So I thought that was a pretty handy solution. Pretty simple. That's all that takes there. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the base plate, 15mm rod adapter, rail block, all that, whatever you want to call it, same thing. Now this cage and Tilta's new cages come with a little base plate adapter thing here that will just screw onto the bottom, and then you can buy their base plate and then that'll just slide on kind of Nato rail style onto this. Their base plate costs like $115 or $120, I think. It would be nice to have because it'd be nice and simple, but I didn't want to spend that money because I already have kind of a base plate solution that I feel works pretty well. It's maybe a little clunkier because it takes a couple extra pieces. But the good thing about like cages and like rigging out your camera is that aside from the cage itself, a lot of this stuff can be reused, you know? What I'm gonna do next is just attach a standard Manfrotto tripod plate to the bottom. I like to use 2 screws in it. I've got 2 1/4-20s here, so that way the tripod plate will not twist. So the next thing here is the base plate. And this is actually 2 separate pieces here that I've already attached. Kind of skipped a step here, but hopefully you'll get the idea. This top part is a Manfrotto quick release plate, and I just have it screwed onto a Small Rig 15mm base plate / rail block, whatever you want to call it. So this will just take a Manfrotto tripod plate and you can slide that right. Loosen it up first. And then you can just slide this right on just like a tripod and then tighten it down. So that works pretty well. I've had this Small Rig base plate for a while now. It works fine. The only thing I don't like about it is that it does have these multiple pieces. It just kind of is a little bit clunky and cumbersome. Since we got the base plate installed, let's go ahead and put the 15mm rods on there. These are footlongs. These are from Condor Blue. And I think they look kind of cool. Nice gunmetal gray color. I like Condor Blue, I just don't like all the blue, but they make really nice stuff. So hopefully they'll expand their line in the future to include more non-baby blue components. I mean, it's kind of their thing, get that, but it's not for everybody. So the next thing I'm going to attach is the V-mount battery plate. This one is from Small Rig. I think this is pretty new. I got it for a couple reasons. One is that it's very adjustable in terms of like how you can position the plate and therefore the V-mount battery. And the other really great thing about this one is that it has a lot of connectivity, a lot of powering options. So it's got a D-tap here, and then on the other side you have a USB out, and then you've got an 8V and 2 12V outs. So this will obviously just slide onto the back of the rods and then tighten it down just kind of position it how you want. Just kind of leave it there for the time being. Let's go ahead and grab the battery. So I found this little guy here. This is a Momen 99 watt-hour V-mount battery, and it's mini V-mount. You can see just how small it is. It's pretty nice. V-mount batteries can get really big and bulky and heavy, so this seemed pretty reasonable. Hopefully it's going to be reliable. It has 2 D-taps, so there's one on each side of the top of the battery, and then it also has 2 USB outs. So there's a lot of powering options with this whole rig, which I really like, and which is kind of what I was shopping around for, prioritizing. So you can see that just slots in the back there, kind of a little back heavy there. But the great thing about this, which is why I thought this was going to be handy, is that you can easily adjust balance by just adjusting the angle. And then of course you could also, see that did a pretty good job right there of balancing things just by adjusting that. You could slide this forward too, closer to the camera if you want to. Well, what should we do next? Let's go ahead and grab this matte box. This is the Tilta Mini matte box. I've had this for a little bit now. I don't use it all that much for a couple different reasons, but since it's a cinema rig, I feel like we definitely need to put a matte box on there. This is just a clamp-on matte box, so it comes with a couple of different lens adapters, a 67, 72, 77, and 82 millimeter lens adapter. So this will just screw onto the front of your lens. I'm using the Sigma 24-70 DGDN. DN stands for delicate nuts. No, I don't know what it stands for. So you just slide that onto the adapter and then just tighten down this little guy over here, and there you go. I also have a follow focus. This is the Tilta Mini follow focus. For a cinema rig, you probably see a lot of people installing follow focuses on them, which is fine. Depending on how you're going to use it, I'm just going to do a little rant here, so feel free to jump forward if you don't want to hear me kind of my spiel on follow focuses. In building this, I'm kind of thinking about using it as a handheld rig. And for me, follow focus is not helpful for a single operator going handheld, because say you're holding it like with the top handle here, if you have a follow focus on, you're really not supporting the weight of the camera with your other hand. It's all being done with whatever hand you're holding, you know, with the top handle or maybe the side grip or whatever. So it's all on this one arm. However, if you want to focus with your other hand just right on the lens, now you're able to support the weight with this arm as well. Reason number 2 is that it just adds one more layer of which way does this lens focus now? Because a lot of different lenses focus in different ways, and then you add a follow focus. Now you go like, is forward going to focus to infinity, or is forward going to focus close? Of course, if you use it all the time, you're going to get used to it. But if you're swapping lenses a lot, it's just another thing that you have to think about. And maybe I'm just dumb, but I just don't like doing that. The other reason is on these mirrorless lenses, which don't have hard stops, so they just are focused by wire, so they electronic focus. Every time you turn the camera off and on, the minimum focusing distance and the infinity focus will just basically reset. So then you'd have to reset your follow focus. So if you had like markings on it or something, they wouldn't be in the same position. You could also mount a wireless follow focus, and I do have a Tilta Nucleus Nano, which is meant to go on gimbals. It's meant to be powered by a gimbal, but since we have all these excellent powering options here, you can use a Tilta Nucleus Nano, and you could mount the focus wheel to this rig if you wanted to, but you could also just hand the focus wheel to another person and they could wirelessly pull focus for you, which is really cool because like high-end wireless follow focus systems are probably $1,000 at a minimum, and the Nucleus Nano is like $200 maybe, somewhere around there. So the next thing we're going to add is the monitor. I'm going to go with this one from Andy Cine. This is the C6S. Andy Cine did send this to me for review, which I have made, so you can check that out if you're interested. One reason that I like it and decided to use this one is that it has an HDMI out. Another reason that I like this one is that it has a DC input, so that we can power the monitor right off our battery plate. I didn't realize that there was going to be an issue utilizing this monitor with this monitor mount and the 12-volt input. You can kind of tilt this however you need to. Works pretty well. I like to hold, so I have a kind of a big long camera like this, how this is turning out anyway. I like to use the top handle and just hold it across my body. With this kind of mount, so I mean I could see it fine, but it's not really pointed at me. If I wanted to point it at me, it kind of would have to swivel that way, but now the monitor is canted or tilted sideways. So if I want to, for me, it makes it hard to tell whether the horizon is level. So I don't really like that. Another issue though, regardless of that, is the 12 volt input is right here, and it interferes with, or the monitor mount, the swivel mount, interferes with the plug. What I'm going to use instead is just your standard monitor arm / magic arm. The way you can mount this is really nice too, because these are basically 15mm rods, so you can slide this right into a 15mm rod adapter, and then the ends of these, as you can see, are threaded. So I've got a couple adapters, a 1/4-20 adapter and a 3/8 inch thread that I put on the ends here. So I'm just going to take the 3/8 inch thread adapter and just put it right onto the side handle, the top handle, I should say. Go ahead and take this off. Screw the 1/4-20 into the monitor. The one problem that I have with it is with this top handle, since it has this record button or this trigger button here, I feel like this whole front section of it is probably electronics. So there's no threads on this front part of the handle. The 3/8 inch thread, the frontmost one is right here, right in the middle, and it just kind of interferes with your grip. You can still grip it okay, but it's not as comfortable as it would be. The last major component I'm going to mount is a wireless video transmission system, or the transmitter anyway. This is the Mars 400S Pro from Hollyland. I was sent this by them, did a review on it. Check that out if you want to. This has a shoe adapter, and then it also has a 1/4-20 thread on the bottom. So for mounting this, we've got some options here, depending on what you want to do. There's a shoe mount on the back of the handle, so you can put that there. You could put it this way. Since we do have this free monitor arm, we could actually just screw this right onto the front here. So all those might work. I'm going to try something a little different. Since this V-mount battery plate, another reason that I like it, which I didn't really know until I kind of thought about this, is it has 1/4-20s on the top and bottom of it, so you can mount additional accessories to it. So I have another swivel mount for monitors. This is from HDMI. They sent this to me when they sent me this monitor. This one has 1/4-20s on it, just like this small rig one. You can buy different versions of this with different mounting options, but this works perfectly for me for what I want to do with it. So I'm going to screw this onto the V-mount battery plate. Now I can screw this right on here. Now I think this is going to work for balancing purposes, but since we have all this adjustability, you can have this upright, you could tilt it forward and just position the antennas how they need to go depending on the orientation of the receiver. You could put it that way if you want, or you could even go all the way back like this. Just whatever works in terms of balance. One area of concern for me is if I'm going to block some of the transmission with my body, since it's kind of tucked into my shoulder here and my chest. That might be an issue, but I'm not sure. So I think that's everything that I want to mount to it. Next, we're just going to get all the cables out. Well, actually, there's one more thing I want to mount to it, and that's just this little HDMI clamp from Tilta, meant to go with their new cages. Has a 1/4-20 and a locating pin. So we'll just line that up here. Okay, now for the cables. We'll see what we got here. I'm gonna go ahead and start with HDMI. I just have some nice HDMI cables from a company called Monoprice. I really like them because they're really affordable and they make really high quality cables, and you can find them in just like all the speeds that you might potentially need for various things. The next thing is the USB cable for the trigger. So I'm going to slide that through the same hole as the HDMI, plug that into the handle, pull this through underneath, and that goes into the the micro or mini USB, whatever it is. And then there's a couple of little cutouts here to actually route this cable or cinch this cable down, which is a nice touch on the handle. So we need to power the monitor and we need to power transmitter. I'll use this one for the transmitter. None of these that I bought or happen to have lying around have locking connections. I would probably recommend looking for ones that actually have a locking connection so that they don't get, the power doesn't get yanked out of whatever it is they're plugged into. And then this one, plug into the monitor. Let's see where we want to go. One more thing, I needed HDMI to the, from the transmitter, or excuse me, from the monitor to the transmitter. Might need a longer one. Really depending on how you position that transmitter. I don't know, figure out cable management, I guess. All right, one more thing to power, and that's the camera. I just need to find a USB cable. Now there's a couple different ways you could do this. One is to use a dummy battery. A dummy battery to DTAP would probably be an option. Or, and what I'm gonna do instead is just use the USB-C to USB-A. I'm just gonna wrap this extra to the rail. It might be worth looking for a braided or coiled USB cable or something the appropriate length. The A7S III doesn't have a little cutout on its battery door, so if you wanted to use a dummy battery, then the battery door would have to remain open. Another thing, going with this Manfrotto plate that I have, or this Manfrotto quick release, this little, I think the battery door won't open all the way. If I can find it. This thing gets in the way of the battery door. I don't like the idea of having the battery door open all the time, but this way, just powering it over USB-C, you can keep a battery in the camera, which I have, right? And that way, if the V-mount battery were to die, the camera would still be powered on because the battery in the camera is getting charged constantly by this battery. So you wouldn't lose a recording because you've basically got a redundant battery source. Let me turn on this plate here. The camera's on and it's showing it's being charged. So it's being powered by the USB-C cable. The monitor is on. See that? And transmitter is on. Even with all this shit on here, it's not that heavy. I think it, because we're only using this one battery and it's a really small battery, it's not extremely heavy on its own, but we've removed the need of having an NP battery in the back of the transmitter and an NP battery on the monitor. But everything is balanced pretty well. You know, you could adjust, like I said, the angle of this, and then you could slide it forward or back however you need to, but I feel like this is balanced okay. And overall, it's not that heavy. You could definitely run with this for a pretty good amount of time before getting terribly fatigued. That's it. I hope you found that helpful or interesting or somewhat entertaining. Probably not. If you have any questions, obviously you know where they go. And as always, I appreciate you watching this one, and maybe I'll see you in another video.